We are live. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the Kiwi Lads channel. We are the evening before a massive test match between New Zealand and South Africa. This will be part 2 of our live preview. We've got another couple guests lined up. For this one, we're going to be looking through at all of the build-up and all of the anticipation heading into this contest. The lineups, of course, have been announced. No late changes that we know of as of yet, but there is still time if there are any sort of injuries or anything along those lines, but there's some surprises. It's just such an exciting time. I've just finished watching the second test match between New Zealand and South Africa from last year. It was a low-scoring close game, which is what could be on the cards for Eden Park. And at this matchup, I'm looking through, first of all, at the starting lineup for New Zealand. They are the home side. Ethan de Groot, Cody Taylor, and Fletcher Null is the number 3. Now, interestingly enough, I believe they didn't have de Groot or Fletcher Null for those last 2 test match up against South Africa. Scott Barrett and Tupovai, that was the locking duo though, and Tupovai doing extremely well in match 1. As well as match 2, Simon Parker gets the start at number 6 with Ardie Savia slotting in at 7 rather than 8 like he was last year. That was due to Sam Cane still being in the All Blacks picture. Wallace Satiti closes out the 4-pack in that number 8 jersey. A big opportunity for Finlay Christie at 9 with Beauden Barrett slotting in as the 10. Geordie Barrett and Billy Proctor, they will make up the midfield combination for New Zealand. Rieko Ioane out on the left wing. Amoni Narawa out on the right. That is rather than Sevu Reece, who from watching those last 2 games up against South Africa did not have the best run. Got himself yellow carded in test match number 2. And then Will Jordan at number 15. Now, the second match up against the Springboks was actually Will Jordan's second start at fullback. Since then, he's had a few more opportunities, but overall, he's going to need a big game. Was a little bit shaky last week in the match up against the Pumas, but looking through at the South African starting lineup, it is Oxenshare, Malcolm Marx, and Thomas du Toit. So a couple changes compared to what we saw in the last contest, or at least the last contest up against the Aussies, as well as the last contest up against New Zealand as well. Evan Etzebeth and Ruan Nokia. That was the duo in the locking trio, the duo in the locking duo, and they did extremely well up against the All Blacks. Ruan Nokia in particular had a standout Rugby Championship last year. Maka van Staden, he gets the chance at 6. Peter Steph du Toit at 7, and then Seo Kolisi. It was uncertain whether he would be playing in this game, but he is slotting straight in to that number 8 jersey. Grant Williams and Andre Pollard, that is the duo that started up against the All Blacks the last meeting that these two sides had. Damien Dialendi and Jesse Krill, a world-class duo in the midfield combination. That is where New Zealand really have to try and shut down, because if that ball even gets remotely close to this back 3 of Kainan Moody, Cheslin Colby, and Willie LaRue, the All Blacks could be in all sorts of trouble for this matchup. Looking through quickly at the benches before we move on to a few of the interesting stats of these two sides. Taukei'aho Williams and also Tyrell Lomax as the number 18 had an exceptional game up to his yellow card in the last meeting at Cape Town Stadium. Fabian Holland, who's been the standout for New Zealand, 15 lineouts won just by himself, but they have decided to bench him for this Eden Park test. Duplessis Karefi, Kyle Preston, he will make his international debut in this matchup. His debut for the Crusaders. He scored himself a hat-trick off the bench, so perhaps that could be on the cards for the youngster. Fun fact, no All Black has ever scored 3 tries up against the South African side. Quinn Tupaea as the number 22, and then Damian McKenzie slots in as the 23 for South Africa. Bit of a surprise this week with them going with the 5-3 rather than the 6-2. Jan Hendrik Wessels as the number 16, Boan Venter 17, and Wilco Low as the number 18. Lutiaga to add a huge amount of impact, not just at line-out time, but just in the breakdown in general. Interesting that we don't see an Arges name in here, or maybe even a Franco Mostert. A lot of people expecting the 6-2 split, but the extra back in the form of Ethan Hooker, Kwaka Smith as the 20, Cobus Reinach, Sasha Feinberg, Ngume Zulu. Now, last time these two sides played, still very early in Sasha's career, he had a few missed kicks, but I do think that in this scenario, they will want Pollard more than likely to play 70 or so minutes, and by that point, game should potentially already be won by the Springbok side. Ethan Hooker, like I mentioned, number 23, rather than Andre Esther Hazel, we have got there in the chat, All Blacks will win, says Ilaria there. We have also got there, hi everybody, hope you're all doing fine. I'm hearing there's quite a big game taking place tomorrow, says Bruce. There certainly is. It is the most anticipated game of the year. I have to say, I have probably watched too much rugby over this last week. My brain does not work in any sort of function other than random rugby championship facts. But I feel like I've done an all-nighter. And the all-nighters tomorrow and the next night where the games are taking place. Hey, says Random BG, welcome in. Hope you're doing extremely well. Bok for the win by 12. The anticipation is building, says William there too. We have got there the Arnlu Green Hearts. And then, hi guys, says Caleb, welcome in. I would pick Argus Neyman on the bench. I thought that they would. I honestly thought he would be one of the first names off that bench that you go with, but I also didn't want to leave out Ludiacha, and I actually thought maybe Diacha would be starting. So I think that the big change that's probably caused Neyman to miss out is actually the form of Ruan Nokia. That man just can't seem to put a foot wrong at the moment. He was great last week, the week prior, up against the Australians, and then also did very well up against New Zealand for last year's Rugby Championship. So tell me, Hamish, why Preview 2? What was Preview 1? Was Preview 1 for New Zealand. So that preview was at 7:30 New Zealand time, whereas this one is at 3 a.m. New Zealand time. So I thought, for a lot of South Africans, that 9 a.m. start for that last preview, they would have more than likely been working, and I believe a lot of people will still be working in South Africa at the moment. But I did want to brush upon different topics in terms of this live stream compared to the last. I also had I had a New Zealand guest on that last stream. I've got a couple South Africans who are going to be joining me for this one. So, yeah, it's a little bit different, same but different in a way. And then also the main basis of that last match was based off New Zealand's selection as well as the first match last year between the two teams. This one's going to be looking at that second game, 16 points to 12. A lot closer, more low scoring, but really not a lot of a slower pace compared to what we saw in match number 1. I've just finished watching that game. Just a lot more handling errors across the board from both sides. Some panic at times, which I don't think anyone can really afford to have. At Eden Park, we have got their score predictions. I did go 23-22 in favour of New Zealand. Now, I think that if either of these sides were going to win by 1 point, it would probably be South Africa. Let's look at their recent matches, even throughout that World Cup. Every playoff game was won by 1. But I like living in New Zealand, and I don't want to get deported for going against them at Eden Park. So I've said that New Zealand are going to win, but, they are up against the world champs. We're back. Happy Saturday to all the Kiwis. It's game day, says Broderick there. 5 p.m. in South Africa now, and g'day Cobbas, says the Big V8 show. Welcome in. Hope you're doing extremely well. And game so earlier here in Namibia and South Africa, says Random BG. Yeah, will be a morning start for you guys on the European as well as African time zone. We have got there as well All Blacks 30 plus. That would be huge. Don't get me wrong. The last time that they played in Auckland, they managed to win up against the Springboks by 15. The time before that, I believe the Box, that was in Wellington, wasn't it? Last time in Auckland before that, it was actually that 57-0. But I don't think this game's going to go in that same direction. I can see this being close, a grindy type of game, and I really hope that early injuries don't end up impacting this fixture. I know that in the past when these two sides have played, and even in this Rugby Championship so far, we've seen a ton of injuries. First game for the South Africans, 4 in total. Peter Steph-Toy, Kurt Liarense, Edward van der Merwe, and Sia Khaleesi. Now, 2 of those 4 are back into the side for this match, those both being in the loose forward trio. But no Kurt Liarense here is a little bit of a tricky one, although I don't believe maybe actually that first match up against New Zealand, they did have him, but then not in the second game. Instead, it was actually Kane and Moody out on one wing, Cheslin out on the other, and then Willie Leroux as the number 15. Willie Leroux actually getting himself a yellow card in that matchup alongside Jasper Wiese. New Zealand got 2 in the form of Sevu Reece and Tyrell Lomax. So these two sides, their discipline could be the main difference maker. New Zealand at the moment leading the charge in terms of yellow cards this year. They've had 5 from 2 games. I don't know whether or not they've ever had an average that high, but they're working on it. Are you doing the game tonight for the Sharks, says Mohadeen? I am actually not, but fun fact, the Sharks are playing at the moment up against Saracens in a warm-up game, I believe, for the kind of club sides around the world. But yeah, I will be sleeping during that Currie Cup fixture. We will be doing some Currie Cup tomorrow, though. I am going to be doing Western Province versus Boland, and I do see that the Western Province got some big players in their lineup, the likes of an Evan Roos in that contest, as well as, I think Dion Foree is making his return again. I really hope that man remains injury-free. And hi, Hamish, both sides not firing on all cylinders. I hope the Springboks perform and win. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I just hope that both sides, even if they're not performing, well, actually, no, I take that back. I want both sides to perform. You know, I want to see both sides do exactly what people expect of them. Go out there, have a hell of a test match, and whoever has more points at the end thoroughly deserves the win. I just don't want it to be one of those games that has all the anticipation in the world just to have it flatline. You know, it has to be big, and it should be, as these two sides will certainly be able to pack the punch. Hope Geordie doesn't get tackled hard again. The thing is, though, of course you're referring to that Rugby World Cup, but I've been watching those last games from last year between the two teams, and Geordie Barrett was one of the standout backs for New Zealand. In the first match, having 91 metres carried, as well as scoring a try. In the second contest, having some very dangerous runs along the way too. So him versus Damien Dialendi is going to be such an important head-to-head throughout this contest. And also Billy Proctor, what's he going to be able to do up against a player like Jesse Creel, who at the moment is one of the best, if not, would he get the title as the best number 13 in World Rugby at the moment? He's got to be up there, doesn't he? I'm trying to think of who else would be putting their name in that hat. Maybe Ringrose would have to be relatively up there too. Galfiku, he's been playing a little bit of 13. And both sides not playing well. Ham says Ivanos, true. Which is why this game, you would think if there was ever going to be a time for them to both start to fire, it's got to be this one at Eden Park, doesn't it? 50 matches unbeaten for New Zealand at this location. Not all South Africa players are fit, so a bit worried for the Boks. Well, it was quite interesting how late they named Sia Kolisi into the team, because initially Jesse Creel was named captain because Kolisi was expected not to play. And then he has been named, and they haven't got substantial cover for him. Off the bench is Andre Esteh's in 12 or 13. He is number 12 predominantly. And he is absent from this game, instead giving the opportunity to the youngster Ethan Hooker, can play 12, 13, 14, and 15 if needed. But I still think that Andre, of course, this is all speculation at the moment, but I think he would have done better off that bench. So you just have to wonder whether or not the selection is 100% in terms of the Springboks side. And the same can be said about New Zealand. I still think that they have left a massive player out of this side, being Caleb Clark. Watching his aerial ability in the first test match up against South Africa compared to when he was absent in the second, that was when we saw Mark Talia get that left wing spot. But there was just night and day between them. Caleb Clark chasing that ball hard, getting up that aerial challenge, in which Rassie was expecting to have at Eden Park because of the threat of Caleb Clark, but not there for this contest. So yeah, it's going to be the case of who out of the guys that people didn't think would get selected is going to be able to step up to the maximum level and create a little bit of moment in history as well. But I will speak no further, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I probably will, but of course we will bring in the guests onto this stream as well. Some of you guys will recognize them. We've seen them earlier on in the week, or at least one of them. He was wearing the suit and tie for the earlier match prediction in terms of the lineups. But we have got also, very quickly before we join with them, what's the hate on Christie? Christie's one of those players that he's been very strong in Super Rugby, but some people don't really like him at international level. I actually thought he had a pretty decent game up against Argentina in match number 2, definitely because he was probably only expected to have about 20 minutes off the bench. But like I mentioned in the preview, he's the last one standing. Like, if you don't like Christie, you don't have a halfback other than a man who would be making his debut for New Zealand, and that's going to be a big enough feat in its own right, rather than getting that start in that number 9 jersey. But we will bring in the guests. Hopefully I've still got the right overlay so that I can just stick them right next to me, but hopefully with a little bit of luck, I'll click this button, and there is Vic and Vern You guys will be excited about now, won't you? Just about to probably head to sleep before the big sleep, if there is even the possibility of sleep before the Eden Park Test match.
No sleep. No sleep. No sleep. Curry Cup.
Oh, you've got the Sharks versus Pumas, isn't it?
Yep.
Couple hours away.
Yeah.
Brutal schedule.
And then afterwards, NFL football, then Samoa against Fiji, the morning show. He does Australia. I jump in off that. Then we go straight on to New Zealand. So it's kind of for the next, what we got now? 17 hours. It's 5 o'clock. So the next 14 hours. The next 14 hours, basically, up and ready for the shows.
And then the Curry Cup games, women's game.
Crazy weekend. It needs to stop, man. It needs to stop.
And it's only just getting started, of course. Those 2 big rugby championship matches around the corner. Argentina versus Australia. That one's going a little bit under the radar, I think, for this weekend. That is such an important game for the overall standings. With a little bit of luck, and hopefully if Vern isn't too tall, I'm going to be able to put a table above his head. There we go. That is the way that it sits at the moment.
Better picture the overall standings. It's a fantastic picture.
But New Zealand sitting in the top at the moment with that bonus point from their last game up against the Argentines. Those type of points could come in very handy as we head towards the end of this rugby championship. You guys got the fancy chairs. I just got this wooden thing underneath me.
One that I can adjust.
Do you both have one that adjusts, or is
no? At my place, only I have one.
He's the tall one anyway. So.
At his place, we have 2 adjustable chairs, which is cool, man.
So the question is, when looking at this table, where do you see the sides all sitting at the end of this round? Do you see Argentina jumping up maybe into second place if they can cause that upset up against the Australians? Okay, split at the moment, 50-50.
Typical brothers, always split now.
What about South Africa? Can you see them going number 1 here?
I'm not that sure at the moment. I'm still kind of on the fence here. Like I said, I think on paper it got a lot better for us because Christie's playing scrum half. If Roygaard or Curtis Ratima, they are top tier. They're different level to him. That's just my opinion. And like you mentioned before, Caleb Clark, I love that decision. I'm liking that decision more and more. I like that only Lomax is starting off the bench. I like that decision. I would have preferred to see you play Will Jordan at 14 instead of 15. I would have preferred that as well. But I think on paper, it's so tight to call. But we look at, you showed us the table there. If Australia or Argentina, either one, can get 2 wins, because I still believe the New Zealand, South Africa will split at 1-1.
Yeah.
If one of those 2 teams can get 2 wins, could we be talking about Argentina or Australia winning the Rugby Championship?
It's a full possibility. The thing is, if Australia win both games up against the Argentines, they will be more than fired up for their Bledisloe Cup Test match. And all they'd need is one of them if the Box and New Zealand go 1-1 in that regard, or even a draw, something along those lines, just to push for a few extra bonus points. We will quickly look through at some of the messages. We have got Morena Hamish. Welcome in, Blues Nate. Hope you're doing extremely well. Love the Box. But really, there is only one team that can win tomorrow, and that's the ABs. I wouldn't guarantee it. The thing is,
I wouldn't bet money on it. I'm not a betting man. On this game, I think you can't. Not with conviction, you can put money on this game.
Sorry, I just want to say, New Zealand lost 1 game against Argentina. They didn't play well that second game. They didn't play well against the French the first game, and I think it was the third game. Also, one of the other wasn't that well. So the All Blacks have got it in them to have a bad game. Springboks, we mustn't discuss. They were lucky, they didn't lose both games against Australia. So it always depends. I think they're both going to be up for it, but New Zealand's got bad games in them. So I think they're going to have a bad game tomorrow, and I think the Boks are going to win.
I mean, we haven't proven ourselves at all. I mean, the summer for the Springboks, we didn't play against anybody that I thought was top tier. So you didn't actually know where we stand. Then we came out all guns blazing with Australia. After 20 minutes, we were going off our rocker. We thought we might hit them for a ton if we keep this up. We might,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it was like somebody switched off the microwave, boom, no heat, and the Springboks went downhill from there.
And they haven't recovered.
No, and
the second game wasn't a squeaky time.
But I have a funny feeling this is going to be like a Rugby World Cup final.
Yeah.
I think 9-6, 9-12, no tries, just kicks.
No, we can't have that. Not this game. Not at Eden Park. Have it in Wellington when the breeze is blowing halfway across the stadium and causing all sorts of issues. But Eden Park's got to be the home of tries, doesn't it? And I do think South Africa have it in them. Like you said, they had 22 points on the board early on up against the Australians. They'll probably scored more tries over the last 2 years than they did in the previous 5. You know, there just seems to be something about the way that the Springbok side is able to play, and it could be the X factor of having someone like a Grant Williams as that number 9, loves a sniping run around the side of the breakdown. But overall, the weather's looking all right for the evening, so that is a massive bonus. Looks like a little bit of rain during the day, but should ease up by the evening. Bit of wind too, about 20 kilometres an hour. So, you know, kicks could be crucial. And who do you want stepping up to take a kick in an important game at Eden Park when there might be 1 or 2 points? I think so. But Sasha off the bench, I do have to mention, his kicking record up against New Zealand is actually pretty poor. What we saw last year in the Rugby Championship, I can see Vern's face just slowly going sadder and sadder when I'm telling him this, but he did miss a few kicks in the last competition. We actually saw a Cheslin Colby missed drop goal too from the South Africans I saw. But all sorts of action. He also had a successful line-out in that second test.
Yes, but it's still better a Sasha than a Mani.
You think?
Kicking-wise.
The thing is, though, I think Mani gets a lot of stick, right? And sometimes it's justified. But Sasha's kicking accuracy, I would be very curious to know what his percentage is in a Springbok kick compared to Mani's. I think it might even be worse, in fact, for Sasha. But I think because of the games that he's played in terms of the fact that most of them they win anyway by quite a substantial margin, it hasn't been that close game that has impacted a decision or a result because of a kick.
Sasha's been lucky because he has never really been that under scrutiny and never been scrutinized because the opposition, we took care of the opposition. He missed 1 or 2 kicks. He's never had that pressure on him like to start against New Zealand, put it that way. And you have to win the game and you can't miss any kicks. You know, not like Mr. Ice himself, Andre, where, you know, nothing seems to faze him. But I was just looking at our tips that we did together on the show. And I mean, we did actually quite well, both of us.
Yeah, or to be fair, we didn't get that. Oh, no, we both went 5-3, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
see, that's the thing. I've done so many videos this week, I've forgotten half of them. You know,
we just both didn't have Willie Leroux on the reckoning.
Nobody had him.
No.
But that's the interesting part, isn't it? The fact that he's starting at 15. We were thinking about it earlier on the other preview, and maybe that's why they've gone with the extra back. Could Willie Leroux maybe not quite be that 100%? What's the reason behind not having a spare forward in this type of matchup when you've got a potentially close to injured Kolisi in that number 8 jersey? It was, 50-50 whether or not he was going to be able to play in this contest, but we will try and read through some of the messages. There are plenty of them coming through. We have got hi Hamish, Vic and Werner and everyone. Says Lilia B. We have got from Campo, the love between these two chaps is inspiring. Well, they are brothers, so let's hope it's not that type of love. We have got there.
No. Hell no. No.
We have got hi Vic and Vern from Brian. And also we have got the rankings. South Africa as number 2 for random BG, having New Zealand 1, Australia and then Argentina. So picking New Zealand and Australia to get themselves the wins. We have got there also the men's with all sizes and shapes of balls, says Blues Nate there for Vic and Vern. I assume he's got the different emoji, so I assume that's all of the different sports that you guys have been able to cover in recent times and will continue to cover because there are plenty of them just around the corner. Morne Fundenberg is in the chat. And good afternoon from Cape Town. Welcome in, mate. Hope you're doing extremely well. Is Pollard doing 80 minutes? I think he's got a good 65 in him. And depending on the score, will depend on where Sasha Feinberg and Ngumezulu actually slots in. I think there's a chance that they could look at him as a fullback.
Yes, I think Pollard goes 80 minutes.
I would play him 82.
I would put Pollard 80 minutes because I was very surprised with the nomination of Ethan Hooker. That's a typical Rassie. That came out of left field. I don't think a lot of people had Ethan Hooker on the radar.
No, because we even talked about it in that video as well, saying, is there any chance he plays? And we both thought no. And your curveball was Damian Willemse maybe as the 15.
Yes.
And honestly, that one would have made more sense than the Ethan Hooker selection. But maybe Rassie knows something we don't. I know that Hooker was supposed to get a start up against the Australians in match number 2. So maybe there was some sort of message between Rassie and Ethan, and he pretty much said, look, you were supposed to start this game. You can be on the bench up against the All Blacks. And I feel like as a young player, you'd be like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll do it. You know,
you could choose playing Australia, even if it's in South Africa, or the coach telling you, listen, your son, you're going to get minutes against New Zealand at Eden Park. I think you'd sign that one off straight away.
But is it also signing what could be an extremely tough day at the office? You know, that Eden Park record that we were looking through earlier on, 50 in a row, 5 of those up against South Africa, but haven't played up against the Springboks since about 2012 or 13, I believe, was the last time that they met. But the Springboks' decent record in Wellington, beating New Zealand back in 2018, or maybe even 17, but Malcolm Marx and Cheslin Colby both scoring in that game way back in the day. So both men still out there. I think that Malcolm Marx is such a key in the way that the Springboks play for this contest, because if he goes down with some sort of injury, I have no idea what the line-out looks like. Jan-Hendrik Wessels, he's a good enough hooker, but is he a, let's say, 60-minute hooker? That sounds like we're talking about something else, but you know what I mean.
And I think Rassie, looking at the squad, I think Rassie's banking on Belinda, Creel, and Colby playing 80 minutes. I think the change comes with Cannon Moody. I think that's where Ethan Hooker has been planned in with Cannon Moody. I think Sasha is planned in for Willie. I think Andre Pollard plays through. Grant Williams, obviously you've got Kobus Reinach out there, so that will be the change there. And then on the bench, I think that we've changed the split because of Ruan Nortje, because he's that kind of 80-minute guy we have now as one of the locks. And, I don't think Lut de Jager or Eben are 80-minute players anymore. But I think Ruan Nortje, he's up there, barring, a catastrophic injury. But I mean, his physique, his physicality, all that stuff, I think he's an 80-minute player. So I think that's where they kind of tweaked the thing. For me, it's another surprise. No RG.
Yeah.
No RG Snyman.
He hasn't been playing well.
But he hasn't had that great season so far, and then of course the big one was for me that Wilco Low doesn't start. But I'm not unhappy with Thomas Atoy, because Thomas Atoy is more agile than Wilco Low for me. I think he's quick, he's agile, but Wilco Low is a guy that can win you a lot of balls back.
Big man.
And do you think that maybe that's to do with the maybe 5-3 split off the bench, trying to add a little bit more bulk into those 5 forwards that are going to make their way on? Because the thing is, if Malcolm Marx ends up playing 80 minutes, we could actually see one of those 3 front row replacements somehow slotting in as maybe a loose forward, or just somehow getting him out there. Because honestly, Malcolm Marx, if he's going well, you don't take him off. Because I would say that's the difference between a win and a loss in those final moments. He's the type of player who can get you the steal or get you a last-minute rolling maul type of try. But it's intriguing. I just don't understand why Manus van der Merwe wasn't the option here in that number 16 jersey. Mainly because he's actually gone all right. It's not like he's been out of form for what he's been able to do.
He's all right, but nothing special.
No, the problem is, I think, obviously Rassie sees the people better in practice and stuff like that. We don't have that kind of insight. But I've got a question for the New Zealanders. Where's Savo Reeves? Is he injured?
I think Sever Reese was left out mainly because of how he went last time up against the South Africans. He did struggle. I think they gave him about a 4 out of 10 in that second performance, got himself a yellow card, and also did end up with a yellow card in the most recent game up against Argentina. But Amoni Narawa, I'll be honest, he doesn't get tested as much under the high ball for the Chiefs as he will be in this game. But he's solid in defence. He's about 95% tackle accuracy throughout Super Rugby Pacific, the highest of pretty much any back across the whole competition. So that defence side of things, I think, is definitely important when you're going head-to-head with a Kane Moody. And I do like that aerial battle on that side. But the other one, and I think the key one in this matchup, is Cheslin Colby versus Rieko Ioane. I think that this has to be, it has to be Ioane's biggest match that he has played in about 2 years. And I almost thought that they might consider moving him back to the centre option at 13 for this game if it meant getting Caleb Clark out on that left wing. But Clark left out, and we're actually going to be covering the game on the channel, Tasman versus Auckland. That one taking place on Sunday. I want to see how Caleb Clark does, because if New Zealand lose because they can't get that position in the air, and we look at that game on Sunday and Caleb Clark's winning every single high ball that he's going after, I feel like that's really not going to help the case of certain selections here. But you'd assume they've gone Ioane for that experience. But is it going to be enough when you're facing someone like a Cheslin Colby, who was sitting down Scott Barrett last year? You know, he wasn't exactly not playing well for those two games.
My question for you is, where do you see the biggest strength for New Zealand against South Africa? And where do you see the biggest? I think you mentioned maybe the weakness, the high ball. But where do you as a New Zealander say, I think we have an advantage against the Springboks?
See, for me, it's probably, the thing is, this is an untested loose forward trio. But I do think that Simon Parker, Satiti, and Savia as a whole do have a lot of potential. I think that New Zealand have gone with a bit more bulk in the four pack than they normally would. Tupavai has been incredible, whether he's playing in the locking duo or at number 6. And Scott Barrett, as much critique as he gets in games up against South Africa, he does seem to fire up for them. And maybe that is because when he looks across from him, he's got Eben Etzebeth staring him in the eye. But I do think that New Zealand's four pack this year has actually looked a lot stronger than sometimes in the past. But my biggest concern with that is the fact that they've taken a man who's won 15 lineouts in Fabian Holland out of that starting duo. And I understand why, because they wanted Tupavai in there. But will Holland have that same impact off the bench rather than getting to start? Definitely, because he has made, I think, the most dominant tackles out of anyone in this New Zealand side as well. He puts in the big shots, and yeah, it's very intriguing. I would say, though, if New Zealand can get the job done up front in those breakdowns, you know, you look at what they put out there on the field last year, they did still have Sam Cane, who maybe hung on for a year or two too long in that New Zealand kit. Savia now in his, I want to say, preferred position, even though it's the one that he's actually played a little bit less of for the All Blacks now. But I think that Satiti, the impact that he had off the bench last week, he's still got something about him, even with the injuries that he's been suffering. And if he fires here, you know, those extra running meters that he managed to make last year for the All Blacks could be absolutely crucial. But this is a world-class box side, so it is going to take an A game. And
those loose forwards, it's going to be such an interesting battle. I mean, you've got quality all over. It's going to be amazing.
Man, if I'm a New Zealand coach, right? Where did it go wrong last year? Was the kicking game was the problem last year? I remember the New Zealanders, putting up and unders when they were in their own 22 last year, and it didn't work for them. I think if New Zealand have a good kicking game, and I'm talking about territorial kicking, good long kicks down the field in open space, I think. I'm worried. It's a good thing I'm not going to bed, because I would have a sleepless night in any case. I'd be thinking about these things, So it's a good thing I'm doing all these shows, because I don't have to worry about not sleeping. I just think this is a game, whoever starts off better. I think that a good start is going to be important. I think maybe that's why the team that Rassie put out at the beginning is what it is. I think he also realizes maybe we can't fall behind New Zealand. We can't go down a try or 2 tries. No. We can't go down 14-0 or something like that to New Zealand at Eden Park. It's a mountain will be too high to climb. I think if we can, I mean, look, we're not going to start like we did against Australia in the first days. That's not going to happen at Eden Park, even though we would wish it, but it's not going to happen. But I think South Africa try to keep this game as close as possible, a tight game, and we'll do what we do very well. We'll nip it with 1 point. That's my bet in any case. I was going 20-21. I'm betting we're going to nip it with 1 point again, you know.
Okay, well, I went 23-22, so we're thinking along those
same page. There you go, you see.
But it just could be one of those games that, honestly, a draw is not off the table here, with how close these sides could end up being if they both play well. It's been mentioned about the form being a little bit low for both teams heading into this match, but I think the biggest talking point for me, outside of that aerial battle, is New Zealand's discipline. You know, you look through at what they did last year as well as this year. 5 yellow cards so far from 2 games for New Zealand. Any other side in the Rugby Championship has had 1 or less. 1 for South Africa, 1 for Argentina, and then Australia with the 0.
I'm enjoying this because that's normally our problem. Because normally South Africa are the mongrels.
We don't have buckies anymore.
Yes, I know, but normally that was a South African problem, the discipline. It's nice to see other teams having that same problem for a change. Because but we'll see. We'll see.
Well, last year, 7 yellow cards for both of these teams, including in that second test match, 2 each. 1 for Willie Leroux, 1 for Jasper Wiese, no surprises there. And then for New Zealand, Sever Reece, as well as, I just watched that game, Tyrell Lomax was the other man who got himself a yellow card.
He's going to start maybe.
I thought that they'd give him a crack, but then looking through at Fletcher Null and what he's been able to do at scrum time, I do think that is extremely crucial to have your best scrummager up against Oxenshire. And some would argue that Lomax is the better scrummager than Fletcher Null, but Fletcher Null, for me, just with his consistency and the fact that he did play last match up against the Argentines as well and, did pretty well, it was more likely for him to be able to start, even if I thought Lomax may have got that nod. But I do like that Lomax impact off the bench alongside Mighty Williams. That was actually the starting duo up against South Africa in the second match in Cape Town. And also starting in that game, Cody Taylor. He had an outstanding match in that second contest. So if he can do it again, he got a bit of a head knock early on, came back out onto the field, was annoying the referee by counting along for how many seconds Grant Williams had left to kick. But there's going to be a little bit of, how would you say, housery? How do you say that in a I just pretty much see.
I think there'll be quite a lot of meet and greet.
Meet and greet, okay.
Yep. Meet and greet, how's your father, a little bit of handbags, pushing. I think it'll be a physical game. But there's one guy that worries me on the New Zealand team. And I mean, not in a good way. And that is that bloody Damian McKenzie. That guy, I don't know. He doesn't do it for me. He worries me. He comes up with
crazy shit. Man.
He can play really well. And I think
this would be the game that he would want.
This would be the typical game when McKenzie comes off the bench like in the 60th minute.
Just to annoy the shit out of us.
Exactly. Just to annoy us and start kicking like his bloody Dan Carter and just put everything away. It wouldn't surprise me. I think by the time McKenzie comes on, I think we need a lead, Vern, because he worries me.
He does.
Well, that first test match last year, New Zealand a hefty lead, the yellow card, 2 converted tries from South Africa, come back and win it. So, you mentioned about that quick start, but I also think for both of these sides, it's going to be how they finish. And with McKenzie, he has become a bit of an impact player off the bench for New Zealand. Did start in the second match, but he started both matches up against the Box last year as the number 10 with Beauden Barrett at 15. Will Jordan get him the chance at fullback in the second? But McKenzie's a hot and cold type of player, but a lot more times recently, he has been metaphorically hot in terms of the way that he's been able to play out there on the park, and it's going to be close. So every point is absolutely crucial But the good news is it's only around 16 hours away. So that's exciting, isn't it? I feel like there's going to be a lot of sleepless nights around the world.
I mean,
it's currently almost 4 a.m. here, but it's going to be hard to calm the heart rate down enough to get a snooze.
I mean, what's your population again? You've got about 4.6 million people, so everybody's going to be in front of the TV. I mean, the road should be empty. So if anybody in New Zealand, if you want to travel from north to south, this would be the time during the rugby game. The roads will be empty. I think South Africa too, the country's going to stand still. Because like I said to you on the other preview we did together, this is the biggest rugby game on the planet, full stop, since the Rugby World Cup final. I don't care about what the Six Nations did and the Autumn Internationals, all that crap. This is the biggest rugby game once again on the planet Earth since the Rugby World Cup. And I just hope it lives up to it, because our expectations, I think everybody's expectations is so high.
It's not a boring game. It's never going to be boring. It's never going to be boring.
Did you hear Vic's prediction? He wanted 6-12 or something, didn't he?
No, I said it could be. I said 21-20, but I wouldn't mind a 43-40 or something like that. I don't mind if we have something like that, but I don't think, because I think both defenses are solid on these two.
Each other out.
They cancel each other out really well. Who do we have? Oh, you said it was an Englishman refereeing this game, right?
It is Carl Dixon in charge of this contest. So the two last year were Matthew Carley and Andrew Brace. And quite a few of those decisions, they were very erratic on the whistle, I would say. But, Carl Dixon, he's got a pretty decent reputation, or as decent of a reputation as a referee can have. And I just hope that the TMO stays out of this game. There's always going to be that one call. And it was fueled with controversy last year as well when these two sides played. But at Eden Park, if we can get a clean test match, that's all we want. We have got Marnus in the chat. Good afternoon, Vic and Vernon. Good morning, Hamish. Welcome in, Marnus. We have got True Says Blues Nate. And also, other than against Italy, Blokes have had no scrum dominance this test season, says Campo. And it is a part of their game which maybe hasn't quite been as solid as the past. But then the thing is as well, once again, when you put them out on the field at Eden Park, something just ignites in certain players. Like, we're going to see, I think, a massive game from Etzebeth throughout this matchup, even if some have said he hasn't quite been at that kind of 10 out of 10. He still had some solid games, don't get me wrong, but this is where those type of players find that next level. Pieter-Steph du Toit, he'll be the same. He'll be absolutely everywhere. He was criticised in one of the first games of the year for just standing out on the wing doing nothing. But in this type of contest, he will be in every breakdown that he can get to. There will be hard collisions. There's probably going to be a lot of stuff around about here. So we've got to be careful with those yellow cards and the penalty counts. Who's the heaviest scrum pack? Oh, I think with New Zealand's loose forward trio, they might almost just about sneak it. I'll have to see that first scrum. But I think with Tupavai in that locking duo alongside Barrett, I think that the weight advantage slightly an edge of New Zealand, just because Kolisi's a little bit smaller. But then saying that, Savia's a bit smaller too, isn't he? So,
but I think I think in the last, for me, we had Pieter-Steph du Toit, Rugby Player of the Year last year. So Ardie Savea, for me, I said in the Super Rugby this year, I thought he was the best rugby player on the planet. I thought what he did for Moana Pacifica, what he's been doing for New Zealand, I think this man is right about now. If you were giving who's the best rugby player on the planet award, you give it to him, man.
Yeah,
and that hurts. He's a New Zealander, man.
But the guy's quality.
He is. You've got that. I think there you've got an unbelievable player, and I think Pieter-Steph du Toit will be up for it to prove. No, I'm still the man. I think there's so many subplots in this game.
Yeah,
there's so many subplots because it's. If on every position, if it's the lock, if it's the prop, if it's the hooker or the center, on every position, if it's a New Zealand or South Africa, they're all going to think on that position, I'm the best in the world. On both sides, they're going to think exactly that, and they're going to want to prove it. Chesney's going to, or let's say, well, maybe not Willie Leroux against Will Jordan. I do think Will Jordan is better than Willie Leroux. Let's put it that way. But Willie's still got quality. Just I don't think he has quality for 80 minutes. I think we could see Willie off after 50, 55 minutes already. And I think he has that quality. But I mean, Pollard, Barrett, both are going to prove who's the best kicker. You said Ibn Etzebeth, and then he'll want to prove that he's the better lock.
For me, it's definitely the loose forwards. That battle of the loose forwards for me is the crucial one, and that's the one that I think is going to swing the game.
I still think it comes down to the fly halves. I think it comes down to the kickers.
Everybody has a different opinion.
I think this is a typical Andre Pollard game, and I'm hoping it's an Andre Pollard game.
Well, the thing is, if it doesn't feed through Pollard, you don't get that class of Colby, or you don't get someone like a Jesse Creel finding those gaps on the outside. So they do need that backline to be functioning to the best of its ability. New Zealand's backline, they will say it themselves, it hasn't been working. That game up against Argentina, some have called it the worst backline performance they have ever seen from an All Black
Long
side.
may it continue.
No. This weekend they've got to try and slightly right those wrongs so that we get it slightly competitive at Eden Park. But there's, like you said, so many individual battles, and the loose forward trios, you've got the experience on the South African side. You've got Sia Khaleesi, you have got Peter Steph-Toy, and then Marco van Staden is a bit of for me, I have no idea what to expect from Marco, because he can either win 3 turnovers in this game, or he will be the one that does something really stupid that gets himself yellow carded, or a penalty try to the ABs just out from the line, or something, He'll either have a 10 out of 10 game where everyone's like, he's the 6 from now on, or he'll have a 2 out of 10 where everyone says, get him out of the team and send him back home. So, Satiti, and also you've got Simon Parker, 2 young men who are still trying to prove themselves in that All Blacks environment. Now, Satiti, I think, has got his place pretty much booked no matter what.
Yeah.
Someone like a Simon Parker, that's a lot of pressure on that young man. And I think that he's got just enough about him to be able to be very competitive throughout this 80 minutes. And I hope they play him the full 80, although I don't know what they're going to do with Karefi off the bench, whether or not Savia moves to 8, or maybe Satiti moves to 6, and then Savia. Either way, Savia's got to go 8, doesn't he, if he's going to be playing
I think so.
a lot more time.
But but when I look at your New Zealand squad and I look at the South African squad, I'd like to know that the average ages. New Zealand must have a younger squad out there than South Africa. We've got a lot of players that are pushing it. I mean, Willie Leroux's 137 years old. Then what were you?
Sia's old.
Sia,
Eben's old.
Sia. So we have a lot of players. I don't think you have that, but we have a lot of players that this is their last cycle. Yeah. Some of them might not even make the World Cup, I think. But we're running on our last cycle with a lot of them, and a lot of the young guys, we have this young great talent like Sasha, like Canon Moody, like Canon Hanekom. They've shown signs of brilliance, but they're not consistent enough yet where you can say, would you trust Pollard goes down with a serious injury? Would you trust that we put in Sasha there for the next 2 years? Yeah, I don't know. The same with Hanekom. The same with Fassi or Farsi. You have got to be careful how I say his name. People have been criticized. The guy that lived in South Africa, I can't say his name right. You say
Fassi. I
say Farsi, man. There you go. End of story. But I just think some of our young players are not
there yet.
Not quite there yet. So and the older ones are on their last,
on their last legs.
On their last legs, basically, yes. So we got to be careful. Yeah, we got to be careful, because I think after this Rugby Championships, I think next year's Rugby Championship, I wouldn't be surprised if New Zealand and South Africa don't win it next year. Maybe Australia wins it next year, because I think you've got to ring in a lot of changes. I think you've got to start just thinking about the World Cup when it's a year out. You've got to think about the World Cup.
And Australia's a very young team, a very good young team.
Yes, I tell you, don't let those bloody Australians. Don't underestimate them. I tell you.
Well, they've come a long way in just the last little while. They've got the likes of a Will Skelton back into the environment after that ghetto law was retracted away. And that seems to have made all the difference in just a couple positions, having that confidence to play the way that Australia would like to, but normally just haven't quite got that firepower up front. Someone like a Rob Valentini really coming into his own. Harry Wilson maturing well alongside Fraser McRide in that loose forward trio. Suwali definitely in that midfield with Len Ikitau, who I think's been an underrated guy for about the last 3 years in terms of what he's been able to do for the Australians too. But yeah, their game up against the Pumas, it could be absolute fireworks. And the thing is, right, yes, this game at Eden Park has the occasion. It's got the atmosphere, it's got the location, it's got the world champs taking on a 50 unbeaten streak. But Australia versus Argentina could take match of the weekend if we're not careful.
Yes.
You know, that game could be better than this Eden Park one. Of course, more emotion invested into this Eden Park test match, and that probably will slightly, I guess, make people blind to that other game in a certain regard. You know, it will be looking at just this one, but, you know, sometimes the fights before the main event do win fight of the night, and I do think that is one.
Yes, in boxing it is like that. Sometimes
we've watched a couple of boxing.
We've watched a couple of boxing and done it, and the pre-fight seemed to be better. But you mentioned now Australia keeping that rule, right, so that they can take foreign players. I'll make a friendly wage with you. New Zealand keep that before the next Rugby World Cup.
You think they'll get rid of it?
I think New Zealand get rid of it, especially if you're a New Zealand rugby fan. Look, this controversy you've heard. You want Australia with Will Skelton and them to beat you so that your selectors can say, no, we've got to change something here. We got to take all the guys that we can take because
for me it's just you've got to take the best players.
Yes, I don't understand that rule. That is like, I mean, in any court of law in Europe, that'd be thrown out and said that's against workers' rights and stuff like that. I mean, how the hell can you just say, could you play your club rugby in Japan or you can't play for your country
as well?
I think that's ridiculous, man. We're on a global world, and I'd like to see, I know all the traditionalists will come out and say, oh, no, but I think it helps South Africa immensely. Yeah, I think that's a big reason in the last 2 World Cups we've been that strong, because you help the young talent in the country because a lot of spots open up. They get to play. A lot of them went to France, to England, Japan. It helped, I think. And I mean, how can you refuse some of the money that these guys can make in France or something like that? I mean, where's Will Skelton? He's not playing tomorrow, right? Because he's back in France now.
He's back in France. Yep.
But he does. They are letting him go again to play against New Zealand.
That's nice, isn't it?
That was the deal that he was allowed to play against New Zealand. That's the deal.
Well, the thing is, if Australia, if they win 1 or 2 games up against the Argentines, their game up against New Zealand in New Zealand is also at Eden Park. So if South Africa don't end that streak, it is not all done and dusted for New Zealand. They still have another game just around the corner where they have to find that rhythm. Don't worry about it.
Australia,
you guys are going to handle it for us?
Australia will then add to the new streak 2-0. 0-2. It will be 0-2 at Eden Park. I'm still getting it. But I'm telling you, I'm really looking forward to New Zealand, Australia. I'm looking forward to this game. And I think Argentina could kick themselves. If they win these 2, let's say they win these 2 games in Australia, just on speculation, they're going to kick themselves that they gave away that home game and they put it in Twickenham and not somewhere in Cordoba or something like that in Argentina against the Springboks. I didn't understand that move,
No, I think that one's just a money-filled one, unfortunately. But also, the fact that they won last year on home soil, you would think they'd do absolutely everything they can to get that game at home again because, like you said, if they win 1 or 2 of these games up against the Aussies, they are right in this Rugby Championship. But yeah, very intriguing. But I might as well tell you guys as well, I told our last guest, I made a deal or a forfeit on my preview, which is if South Africa win both games on New Zealand soil, I'm going to get a buzz cut. I'm putting the hair on the line. It's hopefully not going to happen, but...
No, well, we're old. Whoa, stop 1 second.
Okay. So I would say halfway between both of your haircuts is about what a buzz cut is. Somewhere.
Okay, so my sides and his top.
Little bit, except a bit shorter than his top as well. Kind of on the sides, how long that is the whole way over.
Because I'm learning from my three nephews. I mean, they come in and there's like a taper and a fader and a this, and I'm like, just cut your bloody hair, man. That's all you got to do. It's too long, but it's good. The young people, they're teaching us, all these new things. I think this new haircut there with the curls up front looks like some bloody what do you call that? A goat that's prancing? I don't know. But so you're gonna say if South Africa, if South Africa win
both games,
you have to go to the barbershop.
I do, yes. Or just, I think we got some trimmers out there. I'll be able to. Well, I don't know if I'll do it on live, but
I'll counter that.
No, my hair.
I can't say I'll grow my hair back. That's not coming. But what I'll do is, if New Zealand win both games, and I'll come on your show and I'll wear an all black shirt.
Okay, that's bold. Oh,
that is bold. That is hard for me. I mean,
I wouldn't do that.
I might even get knocked out of the will at home. I might lose all inheritance because of that. But I will come in the New Zealand shirt. If the Boks lose both, I'm coming out in a New Zealand shirt.
Rather come naked.
They can't do that. That's too controversial.
Yeah, we might not be able to film the bottom half of you. If you
the top half would still be all right,
Okay. No.
You talked about me having the suit on the other day. No one could imagine what I had at the bottom. It was only the top half that was small. The bottom was just a pair of working shorts from at home.
We've got the use your sheep shears, Hamish. I'm not quite that country down in New Zealand. My uncle would have some though, but I have got a shirt that says what happens in the sheep pen stays in the sheep pen. But I choose not to wear that too often.
I told you. I told you these guys are all sheep shaggers, man. I told you.
You should cut your hair off on live stream, says Mornay.
Yes.
And
have us in there. You got to take the camera with to the barbershop, or you're going to do it yourself.
I feel like I could probably do it myself, to be fair. Although it would be, I'd have to do something about the suit though, wouldn't I? Because or else the suit would get covered in here. So I might have to have half a moment where I get one of those bib things, and then
there you go.
Go from there.
Okay, so deal. That's live. I'll be watching that.
Yeah, that's.
But I really be honest with you. You only have to worry if we win the first test.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I wasn't going to say if it's 1-1 because I have a feeling it's going to be.
So, that's what I think. But I can tell you now that if Vern's Garen, basically, he said if the Springboks win the first one, they'll win both.
Yeah.
That is fair. They've got a decent record in Wellington. They can do it in Wellington quite a few times. And to be fair, New Zealand have lost quite a lot at Wellington as well. Might as well do it right now, says Ince there. And why do Kiwis not use Velcro on their pants? Isn't where? Like to do them up? Like we have zips here normally. What's Velcro?
We have buttons. I don't know about Velcro.
I know that they used to have those cool shoes that you could Velcro up. The ones that.
No, I think it's because who said that? It's because
that was Charles.
Oh. Nappies had like a Velcro little thing going. That's because he's still in his nappies, man. Or his diapers, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Now, about the game, this is the first time I'm not scared of New Zealand. Normally, I'd always say it's New Zealand, All Blacks in New Zealand. I see the lineup. I see how New Zealand played. Yes, the Boks haven't played well either, but I'm not scared.
But me and Hamish actually said on the last program we did together, we actually want to get one of those heart monitor things on you. And then we can have in the corner Bird's heart rate, because I can tell you when we're playing against Australia in the first one, he was clinically dead next to me. I was worried I had to give CPR here, mouth to mouth, and I'm not doing that. Come on. I said we got to get one of those shock things there, the defibrillator, because you were clinically dead when Australia.
Something about the Boks just puts me in a whole new level.
I mean, I remember that the last Rugby World Cup, I missed the positive. I was like, no problem.
Why do you always have to bring that up?
This boy couldn't watch the games anymore. He was hiding in the cellar like a little.
That was only against England because I can't lose against England.
Okay. Now, his heart rate tomorrow, I'm telling you now, we got to get some monitor there. It's going to be between 180 and 200.
Well, I think we were going to possibly have that post-review as well, so we'll be able to see whether or not it's elevator.
I might skip that
too
one.
high.
You can do it with Vic.
If we lose bird skipping,
I might skip that one.
You see, you gotta have the cojones.
No, I'll be finished. I'll be physically finished.
You can't because you've got a lot of Curry Cup games after that.
I've got a couple of hours to have a little nap.
No, be positive, man. Be positive. Look, I just hope we have a fantastic rugby game with, like you said, no TMO involvement, no
15v15,
15v15, no referees with controversial decisions. I want to talk about great rugby after the game and not, the ref screwed over New Zealand, the ref screwed over South Africa, something like that. So I just want good rugby. And then at the end of the day, may the best team win. That's the one in green and gold. But let's just hope, we'll see. And if New Zealand win, I'll be the first to stand up and applaud you. And if they don't, I'll be a lot happier. But we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah, as long as it's a good game. I feel, I was going to say everyone's happy, but they won't be. At the end of the day, there will be
at least two. One nation's going to be pissed tomorrow. It's either New Zealanders going to be hitting the bars afterwards.
They're both going to be pissed.
Yeah, the New Zealanders are either going to the bars because they're happy they won, or they're going to be drowning their sorrows. And in South Africa, every time South Africa loses, it's like the biggest thing ever in the country. Everybody's totally depressed. Half the nation skip work on Monday. We'll see. But that's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. But most probably the Australia-Argentina game's the better one.
I think that game will be the one that everyone can sit back and relax watching. Of course, it's going to be a very early start for you guys in South Africa as well as the Northern Hemisphere for that match. I believe it's going to be around that 6 a.m. start time, somewhere around there, 6:30. So pretty brutal. We have got Charles has gone for the All Blacks. And what is your pet sheep's name? Hamish asking for a friend. I actually have two at the moment, believe it or not. We've got two lambs in the backyard. Their names are Hamsy and Nelly. Fun fact. So I do have a couple lambs. So it doesn't help the joke, does it?
I know how I'd name them. I know. Bowden, Scott, what's the third one? Geordie. If I had three sheep in the backyard, they'd be called Bowden, Geordie, and Scott. Because I love the Barrett brothers.
The thing is, we had two, and I think it was last year or the year prior, and I was tempted because they were two males and we were going to get a third, but then we never quite got the third brother. So in that case, they just kind of got other generic lamb names, Gordon Ramsay and all those type of ones. We have got the aftermath is going to be very interesting, says Lilia B. It is. And the thing is, the fact that there's another game the week after, everyone will just get relaxed after what will be a very stressful weekend, and then it's straight back up to going, team selections, and we're all of a sudden straight back in. We've got Mornay has said you should shave your beard off. More girls will be on the live stream, says Mornay. I don't think they actually want that, though, because if I shaved my beard, I look much younger and almost too young. I kind of look like a mix of I should be about 35 or I should be 18. So
He made me feel old last time, Vern.
I did a little bit, yeah.
Hamish made me feel old because we're talking about the Eden Park, domination in Eden Park, and it's been 31 years, 1994, the last time they lost. And he comes and he says he wasn't even born.
By a good 5 years too, So.
It made me feel really old. We were discussing that. I still remember when the Springboks were not allowed to play at the Rugby World Cup. And the biggest thing we were still living in South Africa there, where the biggest thing was a rebel tour to New Zealand to the Springboks to play. You wouldn't know about that. You were not even on the planet. But I remember that's how it started. South Africa, the first two Rugby World Cups were not allowed to play in the World Cup. So otherwise we would have had two more trophies already.
Looking for 3 in a row, of course, and also looking for 5 in a row up against New Zealand. It was the first time in 85 years, I think it was, that they were able to win 4 in a row. I don't know if they've ever managed to win the 5 in a row, have they? Up against New Zealand. So
New Zealand's never lost 5 rugby games against any nation in a row. Never.
And that's the crazy thing about it. There's so much on the line for this Eden Park Test match that even, if you dig that little bit deeper, you're always finding a new stat that would be broken, whether it is the win streak of South Africa or, that loss of the streak for New Zealand. I'm sure if New Zealand win this game, there's some sort of record that they've been able to
something has to
add on there too. And we have got Hamish. What was that?
I got a question. You think coach is under pressure? The New Zealand? I know Rassie's not under pressure. But
I would disagree. I think Rassie's under huge pressure here because if anyone was going to be that shining light for South Africa that can to break that Eden Park streak, it would have to be the man who the crowds chant for in a song, wouldn't it? Surely it would be the man who can get the job
done. But if he
done.
loses, I don't think his job's not on the line. But if Robertson loses, don't you think he'll be a bit more under pressure?
No, Hamish told me already, New Zealand Rugby don't have money to fire him.
Oh.
It's quite expensive, they chuck too much money at him right off the get-go. He's locked in until the World Cup, so they don't want to have the Ian Foster situation, how they were pretty much, can you leave? And he went, no, I'm all right. I quite like getting paid. And they're like, can you just go, though? And he's like, no, I'm all right. And like I said at the time, he was one of those coaches that people either liked him or hated him, but he lasted a lot longer than people thought because they couldn't afford to get rid of him earlier. And it's a little bit similar to what we saw in some regards for the Welsh. They kind of had that situation with Gatland, how they threw him all that money and then went, oh, this isn't working, but now we've thrown it away.
I've got goosebumps. He's putting New Zealand and Wales in the same sentence. I think the New Zealand's going to have his guts forgotten soon. Wales and New Zealand in the same sentence. Come on.
Why do you think we do these at 4 a.m. rather than
exactly.
nice New Zealand time?
Come on. Wales and New Zealand in the same sentence. That scares me. If I was a New Zealander now, I'd be shit scared. No. New Zealand has got nothing to do with Wales, believe me.
We've got there. Rassie is having fun in the moment because he's about to unleash his plan tomorrow morning. Says HVG. Wait, are we talking tomorrow morning New Zealand time or tomorrow morning South African, I assume, which will be for their match? Because I know that people have talked about the last-minute changes that could happen.
I think it'll come.
You do? See,
yes.
We had a big discussion about it earlier on, and it was brought up by our New Zealand guest saying that, Rassie might do it, and quite a few people said no. He wouldn't stoop that low to make a change on the day.
No, there's no shame in Rassie's game. There's no shame in Rassie's game. I believe that man, and I can, you know what? I'm looking at the lineups here. You know who's going to get axed out of the team? Ethan Hooker.
I actually, to be fair, I said out of everyone who would go, it will either be Hooker for Easthuizen or Hooker maybe for an extra forward, Argus Neyman maybe.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, Ethan Hooker, either Argus Neyman or Franco Mostert in there.
That's interesting.
Was Mostert already in the lineup? Yeah, he's in there already now.
No, he's missing out for this one, so
I can see that happening. That the last minute he said, no, Ethan pulled up a little bit, with a tomato on the side of his leg a little bit. He's hurt himself just a little bit.
I hate when that happens.
Precautionary measure. We're going to bring in another lock or another loose forward or something like that. I can see that happening. He did it against Australia. In the second test, he did it. The day before the game, he changed the lineups.
Although, I just feel like for this game, because New Zealand announced first, I feel like that's where the big difference is, in terms of if South Africa had gone on, let's say, Tuesday, and then New Zealand announced Thursday, and then they went, we're going to switch this up. I feel like there's too much on the line for this game. And the mind games, I think, will be played out there on the field. We might see that midfield line out, something that we saw earlier on in the Rugby Championship. We could end up seeing...
is the perfect player for that. He's kind of the player that's been built around, so he is on the field. But
maybe you see someone like a Cheslin Colby feeding a scrum or a line out. We've seen that happen before.
Yes.
In fact, we saw it happen the last time that these two sides played. So there'll be something, a trick play or some special type of maneuver out there on the field. But the question will be whether or not New Zealand can start well enough that even with that, we saw it up against the Aussies. They did try it in about the 75th minute, but by then they were already pretty much out of the game, the box. But it's going to be an epic one. We're sitting only around 15 hours away. My hair could be sitting around 15 hours plus 7 days away from disappearing from my head. But, fingers crossed. And we'll see what happens. If the first game's a draw, I will say it's still on. And that's brave because Wellington could go easily.
Could go wrong, man. But what I find surprising, and this just shows you how important this game is for the Springboks and for Rassie, is Rassie is normally the coach that comes out Monday. This is my squad. I don't give a shit what the other teams are doing. This is how we play. You guys have a look how you're going to play against us. That's normally the thought, right? His thought process. We're the world champions. We're the Springboks. This is my team. Do whatever you want with it. Good luck. Think about it the whole week. I don't care if you bring out your team on Friday. But not in this test. Ooh, no. Rassie was like, no. On Monday, they expected the lineup to come out. He said, no, maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, maybe I think he's playing.
But they were waiting for Sia.
Yeah. But you can still always make a late-minute change. But I do think that just shows you how seriously they are taking this test.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, of course we're going to take it seriously. But I mean,
come on.
But it's not atypical Rassie.
No.
Even in the World Cup, he's always the first coach to announce his squad. He's always the first. And now it's like, didn't play well against New Zealand, didn't have a great summer, a little bit of pressure there. We definitely want to get this streak of New Zealand out the way. You can start a new streak after this one. You can start it with Australia, but we got to get this one out of the way. This Eden Park streak has to end,
And will it? That's the question. We will find out
I'm
soon.
still on the fence at the moment. I'm still 1 point. Like I'm 3. Wow.
Not much.
Just go out on a limb there. 3 points against 1 point. I mean, just talk about being brave. I mean, come on.
I mean, to be fair,
you could have started next to Mel Gibson. No, you'd have been the other guy from the English.
No, I'll say 3 points. It's comfortable, just 3 points in case a penalty does happen in the last second.
I'm still going. New Zealand are leading 2018 with about a half a minute to go, and Pollard hits it from 45, 50 meters out.
Okay.
That's what
I see 2 points has been a pretty common occurrence between these two sides. I believe the last maybe 2 of 4, in fact, no, it's even more than that. About 4 of the last 12 have been separated by just the 2 points.
Okay.
So perhaps that could be a common scoreline we see here, just the 1 extra conversion, which of course, imagine Pollard has a bad day off the tee.
You don't want to
imagine that, do you?
He's trying to talk this into existence. You can see it. He's like, can I jinx it? Can I hope? It could be. Look, Pollard he had a good game against Australia in the second test.
Mm-hmm.
But he hasn't had, since that semi-final and the final of the, what's his name?
Premiership.
Of the Premiership. He's actually not had, it was a bumpy road for him for a few months. But last week, it's 2 weeks now. 2 weeks ago against Australia.
Well.
He was perfect, basically. We need, look, we're not going to win if Pollard's not perfect. I'll be honest. If Pollard has a bad game, we might as well put the barbecue on now, start putting the boerewors on there and just enjoy eating. Because if Pollard has a bad game, we're not winning. No. That's the bottom line. That's one. We can afford other players in other positions not to be 100%. But if he's not 100%, we are shagged. There you go.
That's a good old term, isn't it? We got about the weather update. At the moment for Auckland, it feels like it's 9 degrees Celsius at this current point in time. It's just a little bit of spitting at the moment. A little bit of rain, cloudy conditions expected around 3 p.m. with wind gusts up to 36 kilometres an hour at this point in time. Later on tonight, okay, sun's coming out at about 5 by the looks of it, which isn't too bad, but up until then it's supposed to be raining most of the morning, so it will be slippery underfoot. No matter how much they try and dry it, there will still be that little bit of a factor of slipperiness. And also when it comes to the wind, I just want to see what it's sitting at in the evening. How do I do that? What button do I
Because when I was with Hamish on the program, I actually was hoping that it's going to be torrential rain the whole week because I wanted a heavy pitch. I thought the Springboks have a better chance with a heavy pitch.
So wind speeds between kind of that 9 to 24 kilometres and gusts up to 44 k's. That's quite substantial.
Substantial, yeah.
In terms of a bit of wind.
If the wind guards just blow at the right time, then everything's fine,
Is that just when New Zealand are kicking, or?
They didn't say anything. Did I say anything?
No, you didn't.
No, I've been totally neutral here. I've been like the UN and Switzerland. I'm neutral here,
Of course you are.
But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, this preview We've done about 3 hours of previews today on the channel in terms of live streams. It's been a hectic week, that is for sure, but plenty more coming, of course, next week, as well as, fun fact, there's a massive game taking place a bit later on between the Springboks and the All Blacks. We will be covering that one on the channel with the live commentary. 31-13 to South Africa. That scoreline will be disaster for New Zealand. I think just a loss will be disaster for New Zealand in general, rather than that big margin. But I think the only way South Africa wins 31-13 is if New Zealand get a couple more dumb yellow cards and just shoot themselves in the foot.
That kind of score I can't see happening. No. I cannot see any team. I said the max I see is 1 try difference. 6, maybe 7 points, or something like that. That's the max I see. When last did when last did South Africa just blow New Zealand away? Never.
The game in Twickenham. That was before the World Cup. The warm-up game.
Yeah, but that's a warm-up game. That's a warm-up game.
That doesn't count. But it's New Zealand. It always counts.
Yeah, okay, but I can't see. I can't see it. Listen here. I'd sign off on that result if somebody can guarantee me that result. I'm happy, but I don't think so. I think both fan bases are going to be nervous. I think both fan bases have be very optimistic about the game, because I think both teams have a great chance of winning, and it's going to be. I think it's all down to how do you play on the day. That's it.
Yeah.
Because that if New Zealand bring their A game and the Springboks bring their B game, that's not enough. Normally, if a New Zealand or South Africa bring their B game, they can beat most other teams in the world, but against each other, not. If the South Africans bring their A game and New Zealand only bring their B game, then the Springboks are going to win. So I'd like to see both teams bring their A game. I'd like to see a cracking game all the way, and I'd like to see that decided in the last 5 minutes. That would be nice.
It's normally when the yellow cards, though, they come out for New Zealand, isn't it? So that's probably a little bit too late for the Kiwis to be able to leave it.
It's probably not. We're going to get 3 yellow cards tomorrow, because he said that, and they'll be like yellow card free, and the Springboks will get 3 and like 2 at the same time or something like that. I can see it happening.
Well, the thing is, depending on how the mauls and how the rucks are kind of judged, it can happen. It takes a couple quick fire penalties in a row. Scrum battle is going to be intriguing as well. When they go head-to-head, we have got there Hamish is having a braai to celebrate the Bok win. Sears Elijah there. I actually, for the last World Cup, I considered, the thing is though, I have a barbecue. Do you know what a barbecue is compared to a braai? Yes. It's just not as cool. So I had a barbecue out there, and I was like, should I do a barbecue live stream if the Springboks win? Never told anyone. So maybe for the 2027 World Cup, I will try and have a braai as a celebration. But it will just be a barbecue. Unless, how do you build a braai? Do you need like a brick, or like the kind of, is it the outer layer? Like a wall barbecue thing?
Look, you know what a braai is? It doesn't really matter how you build it. The most important thing is what's on it.
Okay.
As long as you have wood burning and you get your good coals, the most important thing is you've got to have lamb chops on it.
Boerewors.
You've got to have boerewors on it. That's basically, and if you're in South Africa, a lot of South Africans who like their fish, they'll throw what we call a snook on it.
Barracuda.
A barracuda. So, that's what you have. And then we have toasties also on the braai to start off stuff with. Cheese and tomato toasties and stuff like that. Yeah.
Anything on the braai. Just put it on.
Just enjoy. But I think in 2027 we need to fly over quickly to New Zealand and do a show live with Hamish again, and then we'll do a braai together. That'll be something.
It is a long flight from Switzerland, but we could do it next day after the World Cup final if you're keen. You could pop in to the Australian World Cup final on your way. Kind of do a curve, and
something like that would be great, man.
We need a lot of super chats.
Yeah, Vern's winning the lotto tonight, man. He's winning the lotto tonight, and then it's all done. That's all done.
That would be cool.
But and listen, Hamish, I can say one thing, that if the Springboks do manage to win that 3rd World Cup in a row, I will have a special shirt made for you. I'll get a Springbok shirt, and I'm going to have a special one with Hamish, 3 peats on the back and everything.
To be fair, they're like $250.
We're getting tattoos.
Oh, whereabouts?
Well, He's gonna go on that arm, and I'm gonna go underneath my Man United one. I'm gonna put a Springbok one with three Peter. If we have the 3-point, there's tattoos coming on, and I'm gonna film it live while we're in the tattoo studio. So, but first we've got to get that 3-peat. But no, first we've got to win tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the first step, isn't it? Get the wins first, and then
you build it up gradually.
Mm-hmm.
I did
but nonetheless,
didn't I?
You did.
No.
Maybe you should get it beforehand.
Yeah, right. I look like a right Pratt walking around the beach with Springboks and 3-peats on it. Yeah, right. And then there's probably you want me to walk on a beach in Australia or New Zealand so that they can beat the crap out of me. No. Well, I'll wait till we get that,
Okay.
We'll wait till
we have got the Vic and Werner. You guys doing Sharks and Pumas? I believe they will be.
Yes, we
for
are.
the Carling Curry Cup.
45 minutes.
Yeah.
45 minutes. Still got to get some things ready.
Well, we better let yous get going, but nonetheless, we do appreciate you both coming on the channel. Of course, anyone who hasn't already, be sure to check out Vic and Vern. They've got the daily sports show all about sports in general, as well as a rugby one as well, the Rugby Recon. Alongside that, you've also got the live commentary for that Sharks versus Pumas game. I am not going to be doing it. I am going to be trying to sleep, but we'll see how that goes, seeing as quite the big day tomorrow. But nonetheless, I do thank you all very much for tuning into these previews. The match is getting very close. The nerves are starting to build. It should be a fantastic matchup. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and we will see you all for the next one.